All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Friday, January 27th, and believe it or not, there's a big recruiting weekend coming up. Did you know that, Jose?
Feels like it's been forever since one of these happened, so it's kind of nice that it's right here because we were scavenging for things to talk about some of these
That's
days.
true. That's true. And some people are like, good Lord, you're just trying to do it for clicks for the Jeff Levy thing and other things like that. It's a valid rumor. And, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't necessarily want to talk about Jeff Levy going to Alabama because I don't think it's going to happen. So we actually got some good stuff. And a lot of people, if you're watching this video and you already follow us on Twitter and Instagram, you have an idea of who's kind of coming and who's showing up to this recruiting weekend. And now we're kind of recapping. We're going to go over 7 players that have announced on Twitter and things like that. There's going to be more people there than what we're going to cover in this show. And there's going to be a lot of pictures and a lot of tweets put out over the weekend updating recruitment. So be sure to go follow us on there. Without further ado, let's just get into it. So Nigel Smith, we'll start along the defensive line. I feel like the defensive line recruiting, as always in the last few years, is what's dominated the recruiting topics, and at least people want to see 4 and 5 star defensive linemen and defensive ends, which is, I mean, I do as well for Oklahoma. So let's start with Nigel Smith, who is a guy that I'm pretty excited about. So Nigel Smith's from Melissa, Texas, 2024, 4 star, 6'5", 260 pounds. He, according to 247, he's the number 36 overall player, the number 6 defensive lineman in the class. That's the 247 composite rating. So he's a top 40 player, top 10 defensive lineman in the class right now. Kind of summarizing his stats on his career so far as a sophomore and a junior. He combined for 169 tackles, 37 tackles for loss, 21 sacks, and 5 forced fumbles. And he's playing in Texas. So Melissa, Texas is just south of the border, not far from Norman at all. Easy drive. He's been in Norman. Gosh, I forget the first time we talked about him, but it's probably been about a year since we talked about him. I think he came to last junior day, and I don't know if that was his first visit to Oklahoma, but I'm pretty sure his first visit was around this time last year. So, obviously he's going into his senior season. He's a priority for Oklahoma, and it seems like Ohio State's competing. I saw on Twitter he went up to Eugene. I assume that was this past weekend. I don't know if it was during the week, but he just posted about it Thursday night. So obviously a lot of programs want him. I mean, he's got Alabama, Arkansas, Oregon, Ohio State. And I know way back in the day, Ohio State was like the place to beat and a place that really caught his eye early on in the process. But currently, as it sits, he's got 2 crystal balls to Oklahoma on 247. What do you think?
So I think this is one that if this visit goes like super, super well, could end up in OU's favor. And would not surprise me if we hear a commitment in weeks following. Now it is a defensive line, so that's the only reason I'm not like super super confident because we have struggled. Like there's only been a couple of guys where I think it was safe to feel super confident, like Derek LeBlanc. That one was one that I know Florida was rumored for a while, but the connection with Levy was, or not Levy, sorry, with Coach Bates was so strong that it really seemed inevitable. And getting to talk to people that were part of his recruitment seemed like that was really the biggest reason. And Drum, I think, reported on it as well. Like this guy, I think, is close to Coach Bates. I don't know if it's as close as Derek was for as long, but definitely something that I could see wrapping up in the next, at least sometime in the spring. Like it wouldn't surprise me if it's done before the summer. I hope it's soon. I think we could come out with a couple of commitments. The first couple commitments for the 24 class might be happening this weekend. Fingers crossed, but the weekend has to go well, and the staff puts on good events, but they also have to try to close some guys out because I know that they emphasize on giving these guys time, letting them be 100% committed to the idea of being at Oklahoma, but you also got to start getting guys in the class so they can help you recruit because you saw how much that paid off with this last class in getting guys like Peyton Bowen to at least stay involved in this throughout the entire year, as much of the saga and it was a lot of drama in it. if Jackson Arnold was not part of that class and committed as early as he did, I don't think that Peyton Bowen would have been a realistic shot even halfway through the summer.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you have to. I mean, coaches can only do so much. I mean, at the end of the day, your peers recruit you to go places or do things with them, and that's half the reason why a lot of people do things. I mean, you don't when you have some sort of comfort with someone, it makes it a lot easier. And really, when I look at Nigel Smith, I think the biggest competitors are Texas A&M. I'm thinking Oregon, Ohio State, and it seems to be like Oklahoma. I think those are really your top four, and you could probably put Texas in there as his top five. I don't know what his top five is, but it just seems like that is the most logical top five as far as we sit today in January. I mean, granted, there's gonna be a lot of twists and turns in this recruitment. So, and you look at this defensive line. I mean, you got Nigel Smith. We've talked about David Stone. Obviously, Stone won't be here. But then you look at Nowari from Kansas City, the 5-star as well, and another guy that Oklahoma is targeting and pressuring and trying to convince to stay home is Xavier Sims from Durant, Oklahoma, 6'3", 275 pounds, 2024 4-star kid. Now there's a big discrepancy between his rankings. So according to the 247 only rankings, he's the number 66 player overall and the number 9 defensive lineman in the class. With the composite rating, it's at 211 and the number 2020 or number 22 defensive lineman, excuse me, in the composite rating, basically saying that other services don't see him as that high of a rated kid. And I think it could be a guy like PJ Adebore, where 247 was really early on his rating, and then everyone else kind of caught up at that point. But Sims, he's originally from Denison, Texas, transferred to Durant last year. I think some family issues or something like that. So he's in Oklahoma. He's in Oklahoma's backyard. But on 247, he's got 4 crystal balls to Michigan State. Obviously, Mel Tucker is putting a full court press on a lot of Oklahoma kids as far as, losing by Joe, which, I mean, he's not a native to Oklahoma and grew up a Sooner fan. You've got Stone and now you've got Sims, and they all have either going to Michigan State or have some sort of Michigan State ties. And with 4 crystal balls, and even Steve Wiltfong is in on Sims, and granted, this was back in mid-November, seems like this is going to end up being a huge weekend for his potential decision come spring or summer, whenever he makes that decision. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest one. I know I just talked very highly about Nigel Smith, but having him on campus, the fact that, like you mentioned, he's got a lot of crystal balls to Michigan State, and something that's probably getting brought up in the live chat or in the comment section right now as you guys are listening is his connection to Sean Cooper and C4 Sports. Look, at first, like if you look at it on the surface level as an Oklahoma fan, definitely seems like, being part of C4 Sports puts these guys in more connection with Michigan State. And as an Oklahoma fan, probably not ideal, because these guys are in Oklahoma. You would want them to stay in Oklahoma or near the area, or they're from near the area of Oklahoma. So it would make more sense if they go to Norman. But Sean Cooper and C4 Sports, if you really think about it from his perspective, as much as he would love to keep these guys close by so he can train them for longer in their careers, he also has to put them in a position to be recruited by the biggest programs in the country. And Michigan State might suck, but they're still a big name program and a big conference where they have been successful under Mel Tucker. And even though it wasn't last year, the year before they were really good. They were a 10-win team. We're competing for for a little bit, we're competing for their part of their side of the Big Ten. It's really just a matter of this staff being able to execute on their recruiting, because it really is going to be, can you show these guys that they're a priority? Because it's clear that Mel Tucker is doing so. He and his staff are doing so, and with their defensive line coach getting that head coaching job at Georgia Tech, Oklahoma is now in a position where they can retake the lead for Sims, because for a long time it seemed like Oklahoma was the leader for Sims and for Stone. And we still may be the leader for Stone, but I wouldn't say that it's probably safe to say that Oklahoma's a clear leader for Stone, and we're definitely not a leader for Sims at this point. So got to swoop in now where there's a little weakness, there's a little chink in the armor there for Michigan State with regards to these two recruitments, and hopefully this visit goes well enough where it at least gives him something to think about. Now, I don't think there's been a public like timetable for his commitment, but it's probably one that if he's being crystal balled as of November, he probably felt pretty confident and it was just giving himself till sometime in the spring to make an announcement. That's just a hunch, but you gotta assume that if Oklahoma can close it out sometime this spring, it'd be ideal, especially since he goes to school in Durant, where it makes it a lot harder for Michigan State to get him up there and for them to travel down here because they got to prepare their guys too. And I know that they're traveling a lot, but you would assume Oklahoma would have the advantage there.
You would think, and Durant is not far from OU, and it's just guys like Sims, who's the number one player in the state of Oklahoma. You want to lock a guy like him down. And I do agree with having their defensive line coach being gone now and has left the program. Is there an opportunity there? I think so. I mean, when those crystal balls went in, it was mid-November, and at that time, the coach was still there. So a lot of things can change, and recruitments can change week to week, month to month, or even day to day. And so Oklahoma probably is looking at this as a huge potential to capitalize. And I just think that they're going to prioritize him. And I think they know that they're going to have to. And Todd Bates is going to try to give him the full picture of why you should stay play at Oklahoma, stay home, and do your thing. And now, could a program like a Texas come and play? I'm not 100% sure, just because, I mean, he's from Denison, Texas, which is just across the border. Did he grow up a Longhorn fan? Did he grow up an Aggie fan, with Texas A&M? I'm not sure. He seems, obviously, moving away is not a huge concern with him, considering he's been to Michigan State a few times and he likes Mel Tucker and what he's doing up there. So I don't think distance is a factor with him, but I always think it's a plus if you can stay within a couple hours of home and get a great experience and great development, and why go elsewhere. So, and if, again, I really think Oklahoma, I'm not saying that they can get a commitment out of him after this weekend, but if they can sell him on the idea, things could start trending in the right way, and maybe they can get him back on campus in March, or maybe for the spring game, or maybe both. I mean, it's not far for him to travel. If you can see him come back in March or April, I'd start to feel halfway decent. Like Oklahoma's got a pretty good shot. I wouldn't say the favorite, but just someone that I would feel pretty solid about.
I agree 100% on that.
Yeah. So again, I mean, defensive lineman is, I mean, Oklahoma's going to have a lot of talent that they're targeting in 2024. And I think we talked about this with Thune a little while ago. Oklahoma doesn't have to go far from the Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas region to go get talent along the defensive line. They've got everything in their backyard. And Sims is one of those guys. Nigel Smith is one of those guys. You got David Stone. Now I know he's in Florida, but he's an Oklahoma kid. And Williams Nowari up in Kansas City. You land all those kids, that's a haul. Even if you land 3/4 of them, that's great. So moving on to another guy we've never talked about on the show is Jayshon Ross. He's from Kansas City. So that Kansas City to Norman pipeline, they're trying to fire this thing up. 6'4", 220-pound edge, so defensive edge, excuse me. According to 247's rating, he's number 112 overall and number 9 edge player in the class. So highly rated. Composites got him at 151 overall and the number 13 edge player in the class. He's holding, according to 247, 18 offers at this point. He is going to make the trip down to Norman and visit. I believe this is his first visit at Oklahoma, at least that I know of, and I might be wrong. But this is kind of a newer name and somewhat of a recent offer. December 6th was when Oklahoma extended the offer to him. So I don't believe he's been there since. So I think that Oklahoma is going to try to get that pipeline going, get Caden Green to be recruiting him. What do you think?
Yeah, that Kansas City area seems to be the second hotbed for Oklahoma right now outside of Dallas, with trying to get their talent to get to Norman, and where you'd feel pretty comfortable with the connections that they have there. Like Parker Thune mentioned, like going back to when we did have him on last, Winery and his Winery's head coach has an Oklahoma connection, is well connected with the Oklahoma staff, and you would assume that these really talented guys in the Kansas City area at least know each other, are probably pretty good friends with going to camps in the area. So you kind of have to just take advantage when you have those kind of connections as a coaching staff when it comes to recruiting. Now, with his ability to as a football player, he's pretty versatile. I was watching his highlight tape earlier. It was early this week. Then I'm just doing a refresher right now as we're talking because it's been a while. He's explosive. Guy is very talented. It looks like he played on both sides of the field. So football player, really understands how to play offense and defense. As an edge, it's clearly something that you would want him to probably be a little bit bigger. I think not that he's super small, but I guess he still has some time to grow. Um, Definitely good to have more talent there on the defensive line, because if you think at what happened last year, right? It's not that we weren't targeting a lot of defensive linemen, but once the staff was zoned in on someone, they were hyper focused, kind of like Lincoln Riley was when it came to quarterbacks. And it worked for some guys. But when you look at the recruitment of the class as a whole, there was always at least a backup. If, their, priority A went somewhere else, there was always a plan B to go try to get someone else. But since was it Marcus Steele, Marcus Strong? Who did we end up getting? I always confuse their names.
It was Marcus Strong.
Marcus Strong. For a while, he was the backup, and then we went away from him because we felt really comfortable where we were with Hicks and Renaud and other guys. And then towards the end there, we got back in the picture with Strong because we realized that we obviously did not get the other guys. Now, we just got to kind of get that net out there and make it a little bit bigger with the defensive line, so that we're not having to scramble at the end again for guys that they might develop really well and could be players, but you always want to get those guys that already have the raw talent, and you just have to add on some weight so that they can compete at the higher level of football.
Yeah, and PJ Adebawore is 6'4", 240, so he's about 20 pounds heavier than Ross. And you got to love the idea of PJ Adebawore and Kane Green throwing on the recruiting hat this weekend and trying to convince them, hey, come play at Oklahoma. We're from the Kansas City area. And stepping back and looking at Kansas City as a whole, it makes a lot of sense why Oklahoma is targeting Kansas City. Because when you look at geographically, they're in the middle of the country. It's a big city. It's got a lot of great talent that comes around it. I mean, the closest football programs is Kansas and Kansas State and Iowa and Louisville and some other programs that in Mizzou. They're fine programs. I mean, they're not bad, but they're not the elite of the elite. So, you have Ohio State that will come in, and you've got Alabama that will come in, and all these big time programs that will fight over this Kansas City metro area. And I like the idea. Let's target Kansas City. Let's target Texas, and let's target Florida and California. That's really their bread and butter, and more so Kansas City metro area and Texas and some Florida. I mean, that to me is a great recruiting platform. I mean, Missouri, it's SEC country. So if kids want an opportunity to come back and play for at Mizzou, eventually OU will play them once or twice, probably in their rotation, whatever it ends up being. So you have an opportunity to sell that. And I just think that Kansas City is a gold mine that Oklahoma is finally starting to break into. And I think it's important that they finally have. I never thought about it until obviously PJ and Caden popped on board, and why they're targeting Kansas City so hard. So staying on the defensive side of the ball, OU's recruiting a couple of defensive backs that will be on campus this week, and we'll start with the first one is Aaron Flowers, 6 foot, 185 pound safety from Forney, Texas. He's a top 200 player according to 247, top 15 safety in the class as well. Going through his stats in his sophomore and junior year, total of 113 tackles, 16 pass breakups, a couple of forced fumbles, 4 picks. So a pretty solid safety. He just picked up an offer on the 25th from USC, but I don't think USC is really in this. So he's coming up for a visit. I am pretty sure Flowers has been on campus at Oklahoma before, and this is a recruitment that I feel pretty solid about as far as where Oklahoma sits. He currently holds 21 offers from a bunch of different programs: Baylor, Colorado, Ole Miss, Oregon, USC, and others of that type. I think Oklahoma is pressuring, pushing for him and really wants him. And I think Oklahoma ultimately ends up with him. And I think that would be a great addition. Does he commit this weekend? I don't know. But I feel like that this could be a kid that if Oklahoma picks up a commitment from Michael Hawkins, I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Flowers isn't quickly to follow. He doesn't quickly follow Hawkins. What do you think?
I was actually going to say it would not surprise me if we saw him being a guy that commits this weekend and makes a verbal announcement soon after, because he has been on campus now multiple times. We are in the year that he's more than likely going to sign his letter of intent. He would probably be a guy that would be really useful for Brandon Hall and the rest of the defensive staff to help recruit defensive guys in the Dallas area. I think that's got to essentially my point in this entire thing, especially with him and Nigel Smith, is if you can lock up one of these guys along with Mike Hawkins, you're going to put yourself in a position to really battle for some of those big time talents that are in the North Texas area. Because at this point, if you let someone else come in and snag someone away, you could be in a position where you're scrambling in the summer. Now, I probably would assume like at max we get 3 guys to commit, and it's Flowers, Smith, and Hawkins. If I'm gonna bet on the 3 guys that would make it a commitment this weekend. But again, with Flowers, it seems like Oklahoma's been in the lead for so long that is really just a matter of time, and the staff has to do something soon because we're kind of falling behind if we're trying to get a top 3 class.
We are, because Georgia is putting together a fantastic class already, and they're already picking up 2025 commits. So I think that, and some people get mad whenever we say I think, I assume, or whatever. Once they get their leader, if they can get Mike Hawkins to hop on board, it was just like Jackson Arnold. It's like any quarterback. Once you get that leader in there to be the peer-to-peer recruiter, it seems to get the ball rolling. And Jackson Arnold, around this time last year, I think maybe it was mid-January. I think it was after Junior Day. I can't remember. He went up for a visit and he committed to Oklahoma. And that's when Oklahoma kind of got the ball rolling. And then by March, they were really rolling. And I kind of see this happening again, and even maybe a little bit more so, and pretty much have this class wrapped up by, going into August. I mean, for the most part, this class was substantially complete. And yeah, obviously Oklahoma picked up 1 or 2 guys throughout the season, but I think we're going to see from now until spring game and then into summer, that's where the class is going to be built, and it's going to be pretty much done. And I like that idea of going into the season this way. So I think getting Flowers, could you get a guy like Peyton Pierce if he shows up on campus and get him to commit? Could you get a Mike Hawkins? Could you pick up a few other DFW area guys? And you get a solid 3 or 4 guys over the next month or 2. That's when you'll really start to roll. So moving on to another guy in the DFW area is Jaden Hardy from Lewisville, Texas, 2024 4-star safety, 6 foot, 170 pounds. So he's a number 160 overall and the number 11 safety in the class. Now, composite rating, he's a number 146 overall and the number 9 safety in the class. So borderline top 10 or top 10 safety in this entire class. So another talented safety coming in. Looking at his stats, he played some in 2020 as a true freshman. So he played freshman, sophomore, junior year, 127 total tackles, 12 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles, 3 picks. So a guy that has been playing at the high school level a significant amount is coming in for a visit to Oklahoma this weekend that he posted on Twitter. Again, I mean, we can never be upset that more safeties and more talented defensive backs are coming in. I will say his dad played at Tennessee, so I don't know if Tennessee is going to be a factor in his recruitment. He's unofficially visited Miami, it looks like last summer, and Florida. So I don't really know where his recruitment stands at this point, but I like the idea that Oklahoma's getting him on campus, and Louisville is not very far from Norman.
So looking at his 247 profile, watching a little bit of his highlights, kind of going through his Twitter and all that stuff, the biggest thing that stood out to me is he was pretty impactful as a freshman, and then sophomore year looks like he didn't get to play much for whatever reason. Not 100% sure what the reason is, so I'm not even going to speculate. And then he bounces back junior year and is a co-MVP in his division for Texas football. Like you at least at the high school level and growing up, you see that he can handle adversity. He can come out on the other end a better player and a guy that's going to actually do something to get better. He's not just an extremely talented guy that's going to always ride that high. Because as great as it is to get those kind of players, sometimes it can be concerning not knowing if they can handle not being the best guy on the field or not being the best guy in their position group. Because again, as I've said multiple times in the history of this show, really, going from high school to Oklahoma Power 5 college football is a big jump, and you're probably not going to be the best guy in the room for your position. So showing that you can handle that adversity and not just going to jump to the transfer portal, and I think that him not having a big impact his sophomore year after being a pretty impactful player as a freshman shows that he's not a guy that's going to back down from a challenge. Now, I don't think that that other guys that are talented and have been riding the high of being the super talented player haven't shown that they can handle it, but it is going to be different, right? I think Jaden has proven that he can and will, and others still have to prove it later on while they are in college, and that's why the transfer portal can be kind of intimidating as a fan because you don't know if having these guys not play as freshmen or these guys get impacted by getting redshirted, because it can be kind of a hit to the ego if you're being told, if you got recruited as a very talented player and then you get on campus and you're told, well, you're not quite good enough yet. Like that probably hurt your ego a little bit as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. So Jaden, I think that's what I like about Jaden. Looking at him on paper, looks like he can handle adversity as a talented player. Now there's going to be a big fight for this guy's recruitment if Oklahoma were to land him. Texas is going to be a player in this, like you said. Tennessee, his dad being an alum from there, is going to be a player. Miami, like it's really going to be, can Brandon Hall and Jay Valai and the rest of the defensive staff make a connection with him? How does this weekend go? And can you get him back on campus in the summer? Get him back on campus for the spring game. Like if you can get him maybe 2 more times before the end of the summer on campus, you got to feel pretty good on when you're at, assuming he does not, commit sometime before the beginning of the summer or middle of the summer.
I do wonder the way that Oklahoma's recruiting the defensive backfield, how many safeties they'll take and how many corners they'll take. Of course, it's going to be tough to really gauge because you've got the transfer portal that will obviously come back and play late this year and early next year. And so it's kind of tough to gauge who's coming, who's going, but they probably have a good idea towards the end of the season. Does Oklahoma fill up their spots pretty quick? I kind of am starting to get the feeling that Oklahoma's not going to really struggle to get defensive backs. I'm not saying they're all going to be 5 stars, but I think they're going to be top 250 players consistently and kids that want to go play for Jay Valai and go play for Brent Venables. And I think you're going to start to see a little bit of the tide turning. Obviously, Peyton Bowen was a splash commitment that Oklahoma got in the last recruiting cycle, but you've got the number 2 corner coming in, Kendall Dolby, and you've got guys like Josiah Wagner, who's talented, and Makari Vickers and Jacoby Johnson are really talented. I mean, all these guys that they're bringing in are extremely talented. And if you see this next year, if these kids see, wow, they came in as a freshman and contributed, could Peyton Bowen contribute, or even year 2 down the road, and they're playing at an elite level, you're going to really see the perception of Oklahoma change. And I just wonder that you might have to start committing to Oklahoma early, because couldn't Aaron Flowers hop on board? And does Oklahoma only take 2 or 3 safeties and they got 1 or 2 spots left? And then you start to get that feeling of, well, if I don't commit now, I'm not going to have an opportunity to play at Oklahoma. And that's a good place to be.
Yeah,
So,
definitely, especially with the defensive backs, how it's been a kind of a struggle over, I guess, recent as of late in the last 5 years, 5, 10 years. We're
mhm.
seeing that tide turn. Now we just got to see that with the defensive line get back to where we were at the early parts of Bob's tenure at Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on the other side of the ball, we're going to talk about a couple more guys. First guy is going to be Max Anderson, 6'5", 300-pound offensive tackle from Frisco, Texas. So again, DFW area. He's a top 185 player, top 10 offensive tackle, excuse me, according to 247, depending on which one of the rankings you're looking at. And Oklahoma recently offered him mid-December, December 17th. And so now he's coming in a little over a month after the offer, coming in for an unofficial this weekend for Junior Day. Um, you know, 6'5", 300 pounds, and as you're finishing up your junior year is pretty strong. That is quite a frame to already be filled out at that size and that weight, and you haven't even hit your senior year yet. And he's kind of reminding me, as far as his frame goes already, is kind of like a Caden Green. I mean, there's not many offensive tackles out there that are juniors that are 6'5", 300 pounds. What do you think about Max Anderson?
I was gonna make that same comparison frame wise to Caden Green at the age that they are at. The one thing with him, and that's I guess it's something that people also speculate with Caden is being 6'5", would they be more suitable at the guard position when you get into the college ranks? I think Caden Green is long enough, and then I need to do a little bit more digging on Max, but if he's long enough, he can still play tackle at the college level. But I think it might be beneficial for him to kick in and be a little bit more versatile when it comes to playing it in the off within the offensive line, playing guard, playing tackle. Now, being a tackle is going to get you recruited a lot more than if you're a guard, because it's just a more important position, to be frank. And he would be a big time addition to what would be, I guess, the group that would mix in with the 2023 class, and getting back to the offensive line that we had with Baker when we had Drew Samia and Ben Powers, Cody Ford, Creed Humphrey, like all those guys when they won the offensive line award. You kind of got to get those guys that are going to be a little bit more versatile, guys that are going to be tough. I don't think he's going to need to gain a lot of weight by the time he gets to college. So that's one thing he's gotten aside. He'll be a little bit more college ready to play, depending on his strength level, I guess. So as long as he hits the weight room, he'll be good. But I'm excited to have him on campus. It's good that we're getting some of these guys that seem to be more college ready at the offensive line position once for these visits, and hopefully it goes well. That with running backs, offensive linemen, and now really with defensive backs, I don't stress too much with, can we get guys that are going to be talented and that can contribute at some point in their college careers? Because Coach B, DeMarco Murray, Coach Falai, they've all proven that they can recruit very well, and it's not something that we really need to worry about at really at any point throughout a recruiting cycle.
Yeah, especially the way that they've been putting together recruiting cycles in recent memory. I mean, their track record speaking for themselves. So I totally agree with that sentiment. I mean, you look at the remaining 4 NFL teams. I think I heard some sort of metric that 20% of the offensive linemen are from Oklahoma that are remaining, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's a great showing. So someone's bound to win the Super Bowl, and Oklahoma alum is bound to win the Super Bowl because everyone's playing on one of the teams. So Coach B, he is the best, or one of the best. I kind of think he's the best offensive line coach in the game. And I remember there was a time where people were questioning, should Oklahoma let him go? And that would have been the dumbest decision that they ever made. I'm glad that didn't never happen. So Moving on, the last guy we're going to be talking about on the offensive side is Jeremy Payne, 5'10", 170-pound running back from Missouri City, Texas. He's a top 10 running back, top 15 running back, depending on which rating system you're looking at. Extremely explosive, talented. He's played as a sophomore and junior, 265 carries, 2,444 yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, had 551 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. So a guy that's combined for about 3,000 yards in his career, 26 touchdowns total. That's pretty good. He's explosive, like I said, also plays baseball. So he's a versatile kid and someone that he's part of the Texas 26A unanimous first team selection as a junior. Pretty talented kid. I'm not saying that Oklahoma is the leader here by any means, but again, when DeMarco Murray is putting on full court press on these kids, he's winning out most of the time. And I don't know if he's putting a full court press on Jeremy Payne, but I think he's open to the guys that he's recruiting. And we talked about it. I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, where there's like 4 guys in Texas that if they decided to commit tomorrow, I'd be happy with. What do you think?
I am going to go out on the limb and say Oklahoma's a favorite here. Now, I don't think he would be one of the guys that would make a commitment this weekend because if you read Nick Harris's article from last week, I believe he mentioned that Jeremy and his family are still planning on making visits to other schools. Now, with the running back position, and I believe it was the last video we talked about it, that's a spot where it is limited because you can only have so many running backs. We already have 4 really talented running backs in Javante, Gavin, Hollywood, and Caleb Hicks. And then you got guys that have been there for longer, like Marcus Major, Calvin Walker. You've got a pretty heavy running back room where you have pretty limited spots. If you want to play at Oklahoma, you want to play for DeMarco Murray, that is, again, a spot where you're going to have to take your spot early on. So if he commits like March, April, I feel like that's kind of when we're going to start seeing more guys commit to Oklahoma. I'm going to go ahead and take the credit for us here. I believe we were the first to report his visit this weekend. I may be wrong. If you guys saw it before Wednesday night, then give the credit to someone else. But pretty sure we were able to get notice from someone that he was going to be in Norman. So it's pretty cool that we're kind of breaking into the insider game. Watch out, Drum and Thune. We're coming for you. Just kidding. They've got a lot more connections than we do, but it's exciting that he's going to be there, and hopefully he does commit like by March, because it's going to be tough to get one of these running back spots for anyone, even a guy like Stacey Gage, who I know we were all excited about a year ago, and it seems like his recruitment is still up in the air. But no matter how talented you are, if that spot's not there for you, if you didn't take it early on, it's not going to be there. Probably by midsummer, I would say we have our running backs in place. You're muted.
Yep, I did it. I did what you did every so often. But no, I agree. I think the running backs will be in place by midsummer. And this is a position that any one of those guys want to commit at any time, I'm happy. I don't really have a preference one over the other. I just want 2 great running backs, and the ones that we're recruiting are all great. So there's really no issue with me. So do you have any final thoughts or anything else?
Nope. End of video challenge for this week. It's Friday. Let's see. Who are you guys picking for the conference championship games in the NFL? I'm gonna go with the Oklahoma quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and from the NFC. And it's hard to pick on the other side because Joe Burrow does own the Chiefs in Arrowhead, but I like Patrick Mahomes, and they have Creed Humphrey. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs. But I feel like I'm going to be wrong on that one.
Chiefs, Eagles. Okay. Well, what's funny is I kind of think the total opposite. I am thinking the 49ers go in there, and I think the Bengals go in there. And I think it's the 49ers Bengals Super Bowl. I think Brock Purdy bounces back, and I think Joe Burrow is that guy. and he is that good. So, but I might be wrong. I don't know. The Chiefs Bengals one is where I'm so torn, just because I know Mahomes has a little bit of a bum ankle, but I don't really think that's going to be a huge factor. I just think that if Joe Burrow can get protection and not get destroyed by Chris Jones, he's going to be all right. And they're going to be able to expose him with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Boyd. But, and Joe Mixon and P. Ryan, the two double punch right there, Oklahoma brothers. So,
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
going to be an
know.
Oklahoma guy winning a Super Bowl. That
That is true.
that is without question.
That is 100% true. So, if you made it this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to leave us a review on there. It helps us out a lot. And we will catch you guys on Monday. Probably recapping this weekend. I think we're going to have Oklahoma's going to have a really good weekend, and there's going to be a lot of stuff to be talking about. See you guys.